Hello and welcome back. In the last session, we looked at how we can use SSH keys to authenticate to our GitHub account. So we have two options. We have SSH keys and then we also have HTTPS. Now if you're using HTTPS, then we make use of the username and personal access token to authenticate. Now the problem with that is you may have to enter the password again and again and again, or you can make use of a credential manager. The other option, a much simpler and more secure option we have, is using the SSH keys. So we also looked at how we can create the SSH keys and then add our public key in this GitHub account. That's for your authentication. In today's session, we are going to talk about GitHub Actions. So as a developer, ensuring your code is always ready to go is very critical. Now that's the core idea behind CI/CD. So continuous integration or CI is all about automating building and testing of your code whenever there is a change made. So as a developer, every time we make some change and we push, we want to automatically build that code and automatically test that code. That goes under your continuous integration. And CD or continuous deployment on the other hand is when you want to automatically deploy that code to your environments like QA environments or prod environments. We can make use of your continuous deployment. And this is exactly where we can make use of your GitHub Actions. So GitHub Action is GitHub's own CI/CD platform, which is directly built into every repository. So whenever we talk about setting up a CI/CD, GitHub has this GitHub Actions option that we can use for every repository. Now, this allows you to automate tasks right from your repository, and this can be triggered either when there is a push or a pull request. So let's build our own very first workflow. Now, first, let's talk about the basic workflow structure. Now, every time you create your GitHub Actions workflow, the instructions are defined in the YAML files. Now, these files must be located in a very specific directory within your repository, and that is .github/workflows directory. So inside this directory, you can create one or more YAML files, and each of these YAML file represents a different workflow. Now, when we talk about your workflow YAML file, it has few key components that we need to understand. So first we have the name. Now this is the name of your workflow, and this is what you will see under the actions tab in your repository. So let's say if I go to this repository, so under this actions tab, you will see the name of your workflow with whatever the name you are giving. Then you have the on. Now this can be used to specify the event that will trigger the workflow. Now, some of the common events are push whenever we are pushing our code to a branch, and a pull request whenever we are creating a pull request. So when do you want to trigger this job? Then you have your jobs. Now this is the main body of your workflow. This is where we will define the actual logic of your CI/CD. Now a workflow can have more than one jobs that can run sequentially or even in parallel. Then you have runs on. Now this is where we specify the virtual environment where our jobs will be running. For example, Ubuntu latest or Windows latest or Mac OS latest. As to basically the virtual machine where you want your instructions, the instructions that we give in the jobs to execute. And then we have your steps. Now steps are simply a sequence of tasks or commands that your job will execute. Now each step that you define can be a command that you run or a pre-built action from GitHub Marketplace. Now let's create a simple CI workflow, and for this example I will use Node.js as an example. So here I've already created a repo that contains your Node.js code. I will share the link to this so you can use the same one if you want. So we will create a workflow that will automatically build and test this Node.js application every time we push our code to the main branch. So inside this directory, you will need to create a YAML file. That is where you will be defining your CI/CD instructions. Now, remember I told you that it has to be in a very particular directory. So we'll go to add file, create new file. So we will create .github/workflows, and inside this you will have your .yaml instructions that will contain your code for the automation. So we'll call this file as node.js.yaml. So make sure it is ending with the .yaml extension, and here is the code that I'm using for now. So let's break down this code. So first we have the name. Now this is the name you will see under your GitHub Actions page. Then you have on, push, and then your branches telling the main branch. Now this tells the workflow to trigger only when the code is pushed to your main branch. So basically, when do you want to trigger this? Then comes your job. So we have the build over here. So here we are defining a single job and we are calling it as your build. Then you have your runs on. So this is where we are defining the virtual machine where we can run our job. Then we have steps. So this is the list of tasks that you want to run in order. So here we are using this users and then actions checkout.v4. Now this step uses a pre-built action from GitHub to check his repository's code into the virtual machine. So this is always the first step. Then you have the name. So this we are using Node.js, and the users we are using actions setup node at version v4. Now this action sets up a Node.js environment in the virtual machine, ensuring we have the correct version to run our code. Then you have run npm ci. Now this runs a shell command to install our project dependencies. And then finally we have the run cpm test. Now this runs our project's test suite. So if you have defined your test cases, then those instructions will be triggered by this particular command. So once you commit this file and push your changes, so just to save some time, I'm doing it directly on GitHub, but ideally you will need to do it on your local machine and then push the changes. And done. So here my CI/CD is created, and now if you go to the actions, you should be able to see, so there is a new job that is already triggered. So this is because we did a push to our GitHub, and this is already done. So here you can see the setup job. Here we are setting the code, and then here we are setting that, hey, I want Node.js in the virtual environment. And then here we are running the npm ci. So basically, the dependencies, and then you'll have your test where we are running certain test cases. So here you can see add numbers correctly, greet properly, and then we have your post use, and then few other things as well. So if this passes, then you will see this green tick mark, and if it fails, then you will see that the job has failed, and you will get a notification allowing you to quickly fix the issue. Now let's look at how we can do a basic deployment to a development environment. This is just a sample, and when you're really doing a deployment, I will be creating a separate playlist for GitHub Actions where I will be covering everything that is needed. Now we can extend this workflow to handle a basic deployment after the test passes. The key idea is to add another job that is dependent on the first. So let's go to our YAML file. So let me edit this file. So here, this is the code I have. Now let's talk a bit about what we have defined here. So the first one that you see here, needs, we are telling it that, hey, I want you to execute this job only if the build job executes successfully. So the needs is very crucial here. It creates a dependency ensuring our development will only proceed if the build and test steps in the first job are successful. The run command in the deploy job would contain the actual commands to push our code to a server. So this is just a sample. Alright, so Here we are building and here we are deploying. At this point I don't have anything, but like I said, I'll be creating a separate list for this. And that brings us to the end of the session. GitHub Actions is an incredibly powerful tool for all your code. It's a key part of modern software development, and now you have the skills to start using it. If this video helped you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more content, and let me know in the comment section if you have any feedback. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.